Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation as part of the Industry Insight webinar series. The topic this time is Legal Technology and Innovation in 2019. Our speaker today is David Curle. David supports Thomson Reuters' legal business with research and thought leadership about the legal technology and innovation ecosystem and the changing legal services industry. Prior to joining Thomson Reuters in 2013, he led coverage of the global legal information market for the research and analysis firm Outsell Incorporated, tracking industry performance and trends. He is a regular contributor to the Legal Executive Institute blog and a speaker at legal industry events. He has a JD from the University of Minnesota Law School and a BA in history from Lawrence University. The presentation today will be followed by a Q&A. Please enter your questions into the question box on the webinar panel on the right side of your screen. All questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. We're recording this webinar and we'll be sending a video and a follow-up email in a few days. We'll also post a video on our blog at www.lawtechnologytoday.org. Thank you all for joining us. We'll now begin the webinar.
Thank you, Austin. This is David. I want to start off by saying thanks to the Legal Technology Resource Center at the ABA for hosting this, and for also for all of the resources that they provide. It's a good collection of stuff that you have available if you haven't checked out the LTRC site. There's a lot of resources there, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. This presentation is really kind of a two-parter. I'm going to start out with just an overview of some of the technologies that are, the most talked about these days, and how they are making a difference in the industry. This is not going to be a sort of buyer's guide or a sort of encyclopedic run-through of legal technology, but it's more going to be about some of the themes and trends and where the industry is kind of changing the most right now. And it's not just going to focus on technology per se, but more broadly speaking, innovation and some of the changes to business models and other types of innovations beyond just technology that are impacting the industry today. And then the second part is going to be more a series of tips on sort of how to keep up with this. I think one of the challenges that practitioners face is keeping up with what's going on in legal technology. You're probably already a step ahead of the pack if you're listening to this, if you take your time to listen to a webinar on legal tech. I wanted to give some recommendations on places to go to keep up with developments into the tech and innovation space. So with that, let's just sort of dive in. And the one type of technology that everybody seems to want to talk about these days is artificial intelligence. So I'll just get that out of the way right off the bat here. Artificial intelligence is much talked about and not much understood, I think, by a lot of people in various industries. If you're not in the IT field, we like to think of artificial intelligence as not being a single technology or a single function. AI is really a number of related technologies that are often combined in different ways, and the unifying definition, I think, the thing that makes them all hang together is, a commonly accepted definition of AI is technologies that allow machines to do tasks that were previously thought to be only the exclusive domain of humans. Some of the things that AI can do are listed on the left there. They can automate different types of expertise. You can embed human expertise and knowledge in programs and have them execute against a human interface. Image recognition and classification is a big one. You know this from Facebook, recognizing people, in the people's faces in a social media platform like that. Different types of robotics, speech to text and text to speech conversion is very important. You'd be surprised to know how much of the text news you read is actually generated by computers, especially if it's something like sports news or financial earnings results, things that are sort of numerical and predictable types of reporting that can be converted to text easily. text analytics, different technologies. This is very important in law because it's we have a very sort of text and information-intensive profession. The ability for computers to extract information from text-based documents like case law, and to classify them is very important. Machine translation is another example of a type of function. The underlying technologies behind AI are actually, as I said, quite different. A lot of these are sort of not really that closely related to each other, but for example, natural language processing is very important, as I said, in legal, because again, we use a lot of text-based documents. Thomson Reuters has been using natural language processing in Westlaw for over 20 years now. We're starting to see speech commands come into some of the tools we use. We're starting to see certainly logical AI and inferencing, which is sort of the underlying technology behind a lot of logical systems that kind of reproduce human knowledge, and then machine learning, which is sort of systems that help. That allow computers to learn from inputs, the outputs it gives, and then the inputs and reactions that those are gaining from users. So this is all to say that when people say AI is coming, they make it sound like a big bang, a killer app that's going to kind of change a lot all at once in the industry, when in fact, I believe it's going to be much more incremental. It's going to have a big effect on a lot of different areas in smaller to medium-sized ways, and we won't be dealing with robot lawyers anytime soon. When it comes to law specifically, there's a number of ways that artificial intelligence technologies are already impacting our profession, and I just want to run through a half dozen examples here. The thing to remember about AI is that it needs data. It needs data, and usually lots of it. And so each of these applications sort of is built on a particular type of data. So I want you to pay attention to that. But then also, what's the nature of the problem or the question that the technology is helping to answer, and you'll get a sense for how AI technologies are supplementing the work of lawyers, helping them answer certain types of questions. But I don't think they're anytime soon displacing a lot of legal work, except some of the more mundane types of work. So one kind of obvious example or the type of thing that we kind of visualize AI doing is answering questions. For example, what's the statute of limitations on X in state Y? The data here, is case law, statutes, rules, in primary legal sources. And this is one type of AI system that we've sort of built into Westlaw, and there are a number of other systems that do this as well, that attempt to sort of identify commonly asked questions and find, instead of just retrieving documents that may or may not answer the question, to actually try to provide a concrete, finite answer to the question. And that question, what's the statute of limitations, is fairly well defined. We're asking what's the specific type of criminal offense and what's the specific state. And so for the most part, that's a pretty clear-cut answer. AI can help get a lawyer to an answer like that more quickly. The AI is always, as I said, is always based on data, and when these types of systems provide an answer, they'll provide an explanation of the underlying sources to sort of give you an idea of how the answer was derived. Another really critical way that AI is enhancing legal research is the age-old question of determining whether a certain legal source is still good law. Let's say a case, and we've recently enhanced KeyCite on Westlaw to allow what we call is sort of indirect identification of cases that may have indirectly been affected by an action in the court. So, for example, if you've got a case that's been overruled, let's say a case is overruled 5 years after it's been decided, there may be intervening cases that rely on case one. And in the past, it's been very hard to identify whether those cases are still good law or not, because you need to determine whether case two or case three is relying on the exact point of law that has been overturned in the subsequent case four. So by applying some artificial intelligence to sort of getting underneath the meaning of case two and case three and the nature of the citations patterns, we are able to flag as a warning that those cases might not be good law anymore. So that's a real concrete example of again, incrementally how AI capabilities are sort of creeping into some of the ways lawyers can do their job and supporting them in making those decisions on whether this case is good law or not. Another type of question that lawyers ask is, what are my odds of success in various situations? So what are my odds of success with a certain type of motion before a certain judge? And that's the domain of docket data. Westlaw and other systems have lots and lots of data underlying them in the form of court dockets, but that data is kind of, first of all, often comes from the courts in kind of bad shape, has to be cleaned up a little bit, has to be normalized. But then the meaning of the data, the patterns in the data is not always clear. And so there's a real growth in legal analytics systems these days that can take that data and turn it into analytics that answer those types of questions. So you can drill down into the success rates of a particular type of motion before a particular type of judge. You can determine, which law firms have a better track record in front of a certain judge or with a certain kind of case, that sort of thing. So that kind of analytics is being enhanced also by artificial intelligence, and you're seeing more and more products and more capabilities coming here. Again, this doesn't replace the lawyer's own judgment, but it provides the lawyer with additional data on which to make decisions around, should I settle? Should I go ahead with this motion? Should I go to trial, etc. E-discovery, the question is often, I need to find relevant documents that are responsive to a discovery request. And this is a form of AI that's actually been around probably the longest. With large data sets that you now find in big litigation, it's almost impossible to do the old way of putting a bunch of young associates in a room with boxes full of paper documents to review. The review is going on electronically, and now with the help of AI, some of that review can be automated and made intelligent. And this is where a lot of the machine learning type of form of AI comes into play, where the machine can be trained by looking at what it retrieves and providing feedback on whether what's coming back is relevant or not. And so again, these are systems that have been around for a while. It's becoming very sophisticated at digging through large bodies of data like this. Oops, sorry. Let's go ahead one. Contract analysis is another really hot frontier right now for artificial intelligence in the law. Contracts are sort of semi-structured data. All contracts have certain common characteristics, but at the same time, they're often written in different formats and different systems, structured slightly different. There are products on the market now that can go a long way in extracting what's really important out of a document. So this is where the sort of text analysis aspect of AI comes in. It particularly comes into play in M&A situations where an acquiring company wants to know what it's acquiring in the form of the contracts that the acquired company has. And AI software can extract the relevant clauses from a body of contracts. It can look for risks. It can look for the contracts that are outliers in various ways. It can calculate contract value, lots of things like that. So it's a new form of technology that's really providing a lot of insight into transactional lawyers' work and allowing them to make better decisions about large bodies of contracts. And finally, another form of AI as it's affecting the legal industry is what you could call online legal services, self-help services, questioning, answering services. This is where a law firm or other legal organization can embed the knowledge of its lawyers into a decision tree type of system. Sort of like TurboTax, where the user is presented with a series of questions, and the system calculates a legal answer. It's best used in pretty well-defined fields, such as this example here. Is this person an employee or a contractor? An expert system can come up with a pretty well-defined answer to questions like that. So those are just examples of AI, and I want to stress how kind of diverse they are, that AI is having an impact in a lot of different areas of practice, and some of these changes are quite significant. Some of them are a little more incremental, but it's coming at us from all directions, it's going to be with us for quite some time. Another big area in legal tech and innovation right now is analytics, and in a way, it sort of sometimes seems like analytics is AI's little brother. It doesn't get as much attention. It's a little less sexy than AI, but it actually today is probably having more impact on the industry than AI technologies when all is said and done. Legal analytics is basically sort of taking anything that takes legal data and uses quantitative methods to help lawyers arrive at better answers. The types of data that are available to law firms or lawyers, practitioners, consists of lots of different types of data. It's a very diverse set of data. So all the things you see here, dockets, court opinions, briefs, but all of those are sort of, it can be publicly available data, but it also can be a lawyer or a firm's own data, such as matter management data or billing data, and then a client's data like contracts. All these sources of data can be used and leveraged with newer tools to sort of help make sense out of the data that those transactions generate. These are the kinds of questions that better data can support. And just to take a step back, if you think about legal work, lawyers answer a lot of questions like these, and in the past they've often, mostly relied on their own experience, their knowledge of the law, and the resources they have, within their law firm in terms of colleagues and other near at hand expertise. Legal analytics sort of adds another leg to the support that a lawyer can rest on when making decisions around questions like this. So, for example, the decision to either litigate a matter or settle it. You can look at a lot of the outcomes in previous cases, whether it's the amount of time it took to take, the dollar amount of judgments or settlements, all of those factors that go into sort of the total cost of litigation can help make a decision on whether to litigate, and that's above and beyond the lawyer's own experience and knowledge about the nature of the case. Again, within a litigation, you can make short-term decisions like whether a motion will likely prevail or not by looking at success rates of similar motions in in that court or with matters of that same type. In transactional work, valuation can be analyzed, in terms of contract value, and analytics are very useful for that sort of work. Fees fees can be calculated, especially in this day and age when more and more clients are looking for fixed fee billing. Analytics about past matters can help generate the data you need to be able to provide a fixed fee proposal, and then just the work of working more efficiently, with certain types of matters. Billing data or matter management data can identify how long certain tasks take, which portions of a process are less profitable than others, and where technology or a different process might be leveraged to improve that. So all of these things, all these capabilities, though, rest on the ability to sort of get control of your organization's data. We recently did a white paper on data-driven legal organizations, and we sort of came up with this 5-step process to sort of start along the process of becoming a little more data-driven. You don't have to, advance to the big leagues right away. There are some steps that almost any firm or organization can take to work with the data. And the first step is to just walk before you run. To start with low-hanging fruit, which means get a hold of where you have data that's going to make an impact right away. And quite often that is in your billing and matter management data. It's just sort of getting a clear idea from the data of how much things cost in your firm, whether your pricing is accurate, whether you're leaving yourselves acceptable profit margins on all different kinds of work. So a lot of that data is there, and you just need to sort of start using it. But beyond that, identifying all of the data in your organization can actually be a pretty daunting task. And that would be a next step, identifying where data is, because data is generated by different systems. It often has different owners within the firm, so that the matter management data might be held by somebody completely different than the billing data, or other types of data that you might have in your firm. So just finding out where it is, and then the third step, cleaning that up, because quite often that's, again, generated by human beings who maybe code things differently or enter things differently, or are careless, or don't even provide sort of the data in the form it needs to be done. So there's often a little bit of data hygiene that's needed with data within an organization. Collaborate with those who know data well. This is going to require law firms to hire and reward people with data expertise, data analysts, data scientists, and then process managers who know what to do with the data in terms of leveraging it into better and cheaper processes. So I think one challenge for the industry is we need to grow from being a profession that's kind of lawyer-centric to sort of acknowledging the skills and contributions of people who work with data and other technologies, and bring them into our organizations. And then finally, like most things, it's all about culture. There needs to be sort of a top-down decision that decisions around here will be made on the basis of good data, and that's a corner that needs to be turned. And a lot of other organizations and a lot of other industries are doing quite well with that sort of thing, but the law has been sort of slow to sort of change that culture aspect of dealing with data. So legal analytics is sort of the art and science of getting your hands on all the data that affects your practice and using that to support the decisions you make in your organization, in your practice. Now, I want to take a step back from just the technology stuff a little bit and talk about more what's happening in the whole legal ecosystem. The way we like to think about it is that there are, the legal industry used to be able to describe it in terms of law firms and their clients, and that was the big dynamic. But now there's a few other types of players in the space. Since more and more technology has come out on the market, the legal technology providers themselves are a more important part of the ecosystem. They're partnering heavily with law firms and with corporate legal departments to find better ways of doing work, and becoming real integral parts of the industry alongside the firms and those legal in-house departments. And then in the lower right, you see the alternative legal service providers, which is a key element as well. Companies that are not traditional law firms, but that are providing legal services in one way or another. And this started out as what we used to call legal process outsourcers, and still do in certain aspects. But there's those kinds of organizations are moving to higher value services, managed services, lots of different flavors of that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the real driver in this ecosystem, particularly in the commercial law side, is the corporate client. And they're facing a lot of demands from their own organizations to use resources more efficiently. They tend to have better access to IT and operations skills and capabilities and tools and technologies. And so the clients are starting to take a number of steps that are moving the industry towards that sort of more diverse legal ecosystem. They're right-sizing and right-skilling the legal function. In other words, lawyers aren't doing everything. They're finding where there are processes that can be handled by other people other than lawyers. In-house law firms are really driving the use of data and analytics, sort of as I just described here, to be able to understand where they can gain efficiencies and where they should rely on outside expertise like a law firm. They're the ones driving for the most part, but now law firms are also using alternative legal services providers. But I think much of the impetus to the rise of those kinds of alternative providers came from in-house departments who saw that there was a way to get certain types of work done without paying the full price of a full-service law firm. And then finally, in-house departments are kind of leading the way when it comes to sort of self-service solutions for their own internal clients. A typical example of this is software that can generate non-disclosure agreements very quickly and easily that automatically get approved and can be executed very quickly. The sort of thing that used to maybe bog down legal departments a little bit, but that can be made much more efficient with some sort of self-service technology. So those are ways that in-house corporate legal departments are really driving things these days. If you're familiar with you might be familiar with an organization called CLOC, which is the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium, and they are worth watching. It's an organization of legal operations professionals which are driving many of these topics forward. With regard to the alternative legal service providers, first a caveat. This is a couple years old. This is data from a study we did 2 years ago, and we're just refreshing it, and we'll be publishing a new version of this research in January. But we attempted to sort of understand the market for alternative legal services providers. You can download the report from the Legal Executive Institute site, but just to summarize the sizing portion, there's a lot of data about who's using alternative providers and why, what the motivations are, what the benefits are. But this gives you a sense of the size of this. It's no longer a small industry. It's relatively small still compared to the size of the total legal services industry, which in the U.S. is probably at about 275, 300 billion. So 2 years ago, we sized the alternative providers at 8.4 billion. So you can sort of see the percentage there. But this is having a big effect on the structure of the legal services industry. It's causing some of the, or not causing, but it's a reflection of the sort of decoupling of certain types of services. If there are services that law firms or in-house clients can find an outside vendor that will provide the service quicker, cheaper, sometimes a lot better quality. There are businesses out there that are handling that kind of work. So again, this is just part of that larger ecosystem, and technology is a big part of this. I would say, this part of the industry wouldn't be available if it weren't for some of the enabling technologies that these organizations are quite good at leveraging. There's a lot more detail, a lot more to be said about that, but I just wanted to mention that as kind of part of the overall ecosystem. And then the other key part of the ecosystem is the technology providers themselves, which I think this is a nice way to sort of look at all of the technologies that are coming at the industry right now. It's really kind of overwhelming. I think if you're a practitioner, and I sympathize with all that's going on here, because you have some of the traditional providers like us, Thomson Reuters, LexisNexis, Wolters Kluwer, et cetera, that have always been in the space to some extent, but we're constantly coming out with new alternatives, and those are often increasingly focused on analytics and not just the sort of traditional information services that we used to provide. Legal tech startups are focused a lot on new types of service delivery. Many of them also are focused on legal analytics and visualization. And then a lot of them also are moving into the sort of consumer and small business area where traditionally the legal industry has maybe underserved some of those markets. There's still, the big technology providers like Microsoft and SAP are also supplying services to law firms. They still have a presence there. And then finally, the big four are starting to move in a big way into legal work, and they are heavily investing in sort of the process side of legal work, data analytics and AI. And they are definitely making a play. Now, there's some regulatory restrictions on their ability to work in the U.S., but in other jurisdictions around the world, certainly, and even more and more in the U.S., they're finding ways to provide legal services for certain types of work, and particularly serving the higher end of the corporate market. So this slide is just to sort of give you a sense of how much technology is sort of flowing into the industry, and making sense of it is a big part of what legal practice is today. And so that brings me to my next slide, which is for those of you who are of a certain age, you might recall a movie called Repo Man. And there's a great character, the guy on the left here named Miller, who was always talking about this lattice of coincidence, that nothing in the world that happens is really unrelated. And that's sort of the way I feel about all these things I've been talking about so far. It has to do with process, it has to do with analytics, it has to do with artificial intelligence, it has to do with alternative providers. And I think you can see how all of these things hang together. They're not separate phenomena. This is maybe a little hard to read, but this attempts to sort of show how the industry has, starting with kind of the outsourcing activities like near and offshoring over on the left, that the left-hand quadrant here, starting back as early as 2010 and 2012, we started to see a lot of activity. Law firms creating their own their own in-house legal process outsourcing, or alternative service providers, so to speak, or service centers. They're sometimes called shared service centers. Firms started to look at different ways to deliver what they do in more efficient ways than just the traditional lawyer-client relationship. And then increasingly, starting in 2013 and 14, more and more firms started looking towards really focusing on process mapping, legal process management, and all the examples you see, all the little symbols and triangles are firms and in-house departments that have made specific announcements about this sort of thing, by the way. And then as we got into sort of the 2014-2015 range, more and more firms started using analytics in some of their work, partnering with technology firms to be able to get a handle on a lot of analytics, more and more products coming into the market from new and existing technology players that dealt with analytics. And then finally, the last few years has really been the age of artificial intelligence and cognitive computing, as more and more products they are coming into the market, and more legal organizations are experimenting with different ways of bringing AI into their organizations. So this is kind of the punchline for all of what I've said so far, is that you can't really see the hardcore technology stuff like the AI as being separate from these other attempts to make legal work more efficient. Some of them involve technology, some of them just involve new business models or new processes. So I'm going to leave that portion of the presentation and move on to the second half now, or I'm a little less than half, I guess. I wanted to give a taste of how if you're interested in this, if you haven't hung up yet, you probably want to know how you keep up with all this stuff. And as I said, you're probably ahead of the game a little bit if you're listening in today. But I wanted to identify a few new sources of information about legal technology that I think are thoughtful, well-written, don't involve just news blasts, but it involves some level of interpretation and more critical thinking about what's happening in the industry, not just a bunch of announcements and press releases. If you're not on Twitter, now might be a good time to sign up, because for a lot of these sources, Twitter is really the best way to keep up with what's happening. So I'm going to run through 10 sources that I think you can use to keep up. And by the way, this presentation will be available, so you don't have to write down all of these URLs and Twitter handles if you don't want to. You can get them from the presentation later. And I'll get the shameless promotion out of the way first. I work within the Legal Executive Institute at Thomson Reuters, and we have a website, legalexecutiveinstitute.com, where we track all kinds of issues that have to do with the legal industry. I particularly focus on the technology and innovation stuff, and there's a Legal Tech Link is a quarterly newsletter that we have that focuses on legal technology that can be downloaded there. So that's one good resource that I recommend modestly for just kind of an overall view of what's going on in the legal services industry. It has a little bit of a focus, maybe more on large law than the small law segment. Bob Ambrogi is kind of the dean of legal tech journalists. He's a lawyer himself, but he has written this blog, Law Sites, for a number of years now, and I think it's very good because he tends to just focus on the things that are important. He doesn't fall for a lot of hype, but he will give an honest and fairly measured view of what the significance of a new product is, or a merger between two legal tech companies, what that might mean for the practice. He also tracks a lot of legal tech startups and sort of gives a pretty good balanced view of what's going on in legal tech. Bill Henderson has a website called Legal Evolution. Bill is a professor at the law school at Indiana University, and he's been he's been publishing this blog for a little while, and he's recently added one author that I particularly like. Her name is Jay She has her own company, and she provides a lot of really interesting data about innovation. So, in other words, her focus is kind of the nature of innovation, some of the data about innovation itself, and how fast or how slow it's moving in the industry and that sort of thing. You'll see a lot of interesting charts and graphs here, and a lot of really thought-provoking articles on this site, particularly from Bill and Jay, although there are other very good authors that contribute as well. Three Geeks in a Law blog is a great one for sort of cheeky commentary, a lot of, as I say here, truth-telling and BS calling. It's run by 5 authors who contribute fairly regularly to different topics, and they often sort of really take a point of view on developments, or whether it's good or bad. They're skeptics about a lot of what's happening in legal tech, and that's a sort of a healthy skepticism. I think this is a good source for kind of getting a contrarian point of view once in a while. Ron Friedman is a consultant with Fireman and Company. He has a blog called Prism Legal, and I think this is a very good source, particularly because Ron is a consultant. He's very active in working and seeing firsthand some of the problems that his clients are dealing with, and he writes about them very clearly. He's good at challenging assumptions about what some of the conventional wisdom is in the industry, and he's always looking for good data that supports or doesn't support what's being said in the industry. So I think that's a really good one. If you're interested in artificial intelligence particularly, or even more broadly analytics in legal, Artificial Lawyer is a great source. It's kind of like a one-stop shop if you don't want to miss anything that's happening. Every new announcement of a new startup or a new product, or funding in the industry or acquisitions, just a lot of news about what's going on with the companies involved in artificial intelligence. It's a great way to keep up. Dutch Legal Tech Update, contrary to its name, is not just about legal tech in the Netherlands, although that's where it's produced by a couple of lawyers in the Netherlands, which is a bit of a center for legal tech among the European countries. This is a nice, if you can't handle a Twitter stream all day long, you can sign up for a weekly email that gives you a set of links. I think it's usually between 6 and 10 links to new articles or new reports on the industry. Again, the kind of article that tends to be readable, interesting, has a point of view, and then as well, it's also very good at keeping a global perspective on what's going on, not just in Europe, but in the U.S., in Asia Pacific as well. So that's one that I appreciate as well as a good way to sort of get some links to some of the best reading in the topic every week. Lawyerist.com is not really a technology site per se, but it's a community focused on small law practice, and it does include quite a bit of content about legal technology that's particularly appropriate for small law firms. And it's well written and quite interesting. So if you're a small firm practitioner, that would be a good one to follow. Legal Mosaic from Mark Cohen. Mark Cohen is a former litigator who is sort of turned himself into one of the more interesting authors about the legal service industry itself, the structure of the transformations that are going on, particularly in the sort of big law end of things. But he's a good one for monitoring what's going on in the alternative legal service provider space as well. He's he understands the dynamics between clients and law firms and third-party providers, and what the drivers are of those new relationships and where they're going. He publishes most of his articles at Legal Mosaic. You might also have seen some of his stuff at Forbes, the Forbes website as well. It's published in both places. But again, usually a very good read and a very clear writer. And then finally, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that, the Legal Tech Resource Center itself has a good website with lots and lots of resources and podcasts and reports and buyer's guides and all kinds of stuff that have to do with legal technology, kind of more the nuts and bolts of legal tech, and always a good read and a good one to check in on and follow on Twitter as well. And then finally, just a quick word on legal tech events. A lot of people like to use events as a way to keep up on what's going on. And there's a million legal tech events these days. There's also many conferences, just general legal conferences that will have legal tech tracks or whatever sub sessions. Some of the bigger legal tech conferences that are worth knowing about is the ABA's own tech show. That's in the spring in Chicago. We at Thomson Reuters have an emerging legal technology forum, we just had our third annual event, and that's up in Toronto. Another big event is ILTACon. ILTA is the International Legal Technology Association. ILTA is primarily it's a peer group focused on law firm IT people, including law firm CIOs, chief technology officers, etc. And that's a huge show and quite important to that legal tech community. Legal Tech New York is part of Legal Week. It's put on by ALM, one of the big legal news publishers. And Legal Tech has been traditionally kind of a e-discovery focused show, but they're trying to broaden the scope of it a little bit. And it's a traditional trade show. They have a huge exhibit floor. If you just want to kind of wander around on an exhibit floor and see demos of the new kinds of technology that's available all over the market, all different kinds of legal tools, that's a good place to do it. That's in New York, and that's in January, end of January or the February every year. Codex, the black square right there, Codex is Stanford's Center for Legal Informatics. They have a conference every spring that's kind of the cutting edge of stuff. Being in Silicon Valley, the Codex Center at the law school there at Stanford has been on the cutting edge. They're also a center for a community of legal tech startups, and that's in about its sixth year or so, I think. And I have an old date there for the 2016 conference, but it'll be on again, I believe, in April this year in Palo Alto. And then finally, down in the lower left, the CLOC organization I mentioned before, the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium, has an institute every year. This time it'll be in Las Vegas again in May. And that's a good one to look at technology from the point of view of in-house legal operations. And then there's lots of local meetups and meetings that you might find. There's an organization called Legal Hackers that has chapters all over the country and all over the world, really, and they have very fun informal meetings, usually, at a funky, either a coffee shop or a bar or some kind of event location, and they're very informal. Usually with sort of TED Talk type speakers or demos or legal tech startup pitches, all kinds of things. And there's a lot of those sorts of meetups around the world. And finally, down in the lower right, the ABA Center for Innovation has compiled a sort of crowdsourced list of legal tech conferences, and that's worth taking a look at if there's some particular aspect of legal tech that you're interested in. There's several dozen events listed there, and you might find one that's either regionally close to you or subject matter wise, close to you, to your interest area. So those are some of the ways I'd use to keep up is, read what you can, and when you can, go to some of these legal tech events and find out what the conversations are out in the industry.